chat, prefacing this chat in the most recent live. If you want to go back and see what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to continue off because I took a little break and I'm about to just step back in. Okay. So, what I used to do after a while, I got tired of arguing with people. I used to start like just playing dumb and like pretending like I didn't know some things that I already knew because the catch 22 is that a lot of people will be telling me like the things that I knew, a lot of people will be telling me I don't know the things that I know because I didn't read it off the internet. And I would be like, okay. And like at that point I kind of like just kind of I blacked and I started playing dumb because I was like um anyway, fast forward 10 years later, we're in an era of fake news. That's all I'm gonna say. Um so yeah, because I got my information because like I said, I'm not a first gen college student. I think I'm second gen, honestly. So a lot of things I learned from like my parents or my sister. So I guess maybe third gen technically. I don't know, but I guess I'm in the same generation as my sister. I don't know. Um, yeah, I learned. I learned a lot of the things that I knew from my family. Because my family is like very educated, very experienced. Like, I don't think there's many people in my family who are like I don't want to say like it's like 50-50. Yes? Would you say? Okay, thank you. I think it's actually split like 50-50. It's split pretty evenly. Like split in the middle. Like where it's like I have like, educated and experienced people who, have worked, for the government, have gone to college, all those things, and then people who like are I don't know what you call it, like people who like small business owners, so to speak. So if you want to be like, or like stay at home moms. So it's like 50-50, like working women, stay at home moms, 50-50, like college educated versus like working like skilled workers type of thing. So a lot of things I learned from my family, but my generations, and I think that's something we have in common with millennials. The reason why I'm comparing us to millennials is because I think it's important because I feel like people are forgetting that people who are the older Gen Z, we used to be millennials. So I think it's important to still make the comparison until we finish the Gen Z stuff or we complete the years of Gen Z. But I don't think. Well, I think they already started Gen Alpha, honestly. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of people are like, oh, you can't trust what people are saying because people are biased. People have their own opinions. People have been misled. Like, you read in history class, not the internet. You read in history class about, propaganda. So, you can't trust everything that is told to you by your family. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not telling you exactly everything my family told me. Trust to believe that. I'm not a parrot in any way, but I see what you mean. So like both Gen Z and millennials are very much like challenge the status quo because we don't know until we know who has been propagandized by the government and who hasn't. So it's like growing up you may have believed that I'm trying to think of something. Okay, this is the only example I can think of. You may have thought that like eating chocolate was you shouldn't think too much, can't think twice about it. It's chocolate, it's sweet. Everybody loves chocolate. But then as you grow up, you realize it's politicized and you realize Okay, who in your family is who? Who in your family fed you chocolate? Who in your family tried to stop you from eating chocolate? And that's what you realize. So what both of our generations are saying is like until we finish coming to all the realizations, which obviously we can't because basically until you start seeing and like this that's what I'm saying. This is so like this is not even anyway. So like because the older generations are still going to be around and still working and still employed. They're not all 100% retired. You know what I'm saying? Like they're still in control, they're still in power. It's very clear that our generations, both millennials and Gen Z, we have a lot to learn, right? So, so until the president is a millennial, we can't take things without a grain of salt because we're still learning from experience. We haven't experienced having someone that we can trust in the presidency because we're that young. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I'm like, yeah, trust and believe. I'm not telling you everything exactly as my parents told you. I'm telling you, I'm just giving you small excerpts. And they're like, well, how do you know that your small excerpts are true? And I'm like, from the knowledge I've gathered. And they're like, that people just like to challenge that. And I get that, right? Anyway, because of that, right? Because that's how our generations feel, we all agree that everybody is forced to operate from the knowledge that they are limited to receiving. So you are going to be we all very much believe that you are a product of your surroundings and the knowledge that is fed to you, okay, regardless. So even if you grew up in Antarctica and moved to Zimbabwe, you're still going to be shaped by the things that Antarctica taught you, regardless. No matter how much you assimilate, you're still going to be coming from Antarctica. Is basically what I think both of our generations are saying, right? And so because of that, because like I said, I have family that's 50-50 educate like college educated and 50-50 like skilled workers, a lot of people feel as though they can judge me accordingly. And what that means is they feel as though I can't have the knowledge of someone who grew up with a family of 100% skilled workers or 100% college educated people because there's less for me to average. But then that's when I'm like, but I come from a very large family on both sides. So I still feel like because I have both, I actually can share knowledge of both. But then people are like very much urging me to pick one. I say all this to say I'm trying to figure out how to get to the point of what I'm saying. Cause like I be having these ideas that come up, but like it's like they be coming up in conversation. So like chatting about them without conversation is hard. So yeah. Um so I know this is going off rails, but like take everything I'm saying now, and like understand that it is out of context and out of perspective. So every once you want to put it in context and put it in perspective, I'm gonna leave that up to you. But like right now, I'm out of context and I'm out of perspective. So I'm just chatting in general. Um, yeah. So it's like millennials. The guy I'm dating right now is a millennial. That's really why I'm saying all of this, right? So because he's a millennial, he has a certain belief system, and his belief system is rooted in the same belief system as mine because we both um are from similar backgrounds. But okay, actually yeah. I spoke too soon. So yeah, what I'm saying is so then now we have Gen Zs who is old, I mean millennials who are, who came before Gen Z, they supposedly technically should have a vaster amount of knowledge than us Gen Zers. But like I told y'all in the first slide, us Gen Zers are smarty pants. You know, we were prepared for this because a lot of us grew up in the same households as millennials. So for every all the vast knowledge that millennials have, you can leave it up to Gen Z to like have a Substack page about it, you know? So a millennial might be able to tell you, oh, well, did you know chocolate came from the cocoa plant? And a Gen Zer will be like, well, did you know that back in the 1400s, cocoa was considered to be a stimulant drug? And so that plant, you actually can't talk about that plant when you talk about chocolate, you know? And the millennials would be like, okay, that doesn't change the fact that it came from a cocoa plant. And Gen Z would be like, it actually does because it's no longer a plant. Now you're talking about something different. So a Gen Z would be like, so now I can tell you why you shouldn't eat chocolate. Okay. But millennials are like, I still believe, because I still believe in the man that I'm dating. I know, controversial, but I still believe in the man that I'm dating. So I believe that their the millennials have experience. Their experience will always trump Gen Z, no matter what we found on the internet, no matter what we watched, and whatever YouTube video we saw. The real life experience of millennials, I feel as though, is what carries the team. And what I was really trying to get into is like why that like that's part of the reason why I admire millennials, like how they got to the point to where their experience is like the best quality of their generation. You know what I'm saying? Like if you meet a millennial, you can tell a millennial story by their experience. Okay. You no longer judge them for being a millennial. You're like, okay, are you this type of millennial or are you this type of millennial? Gen Zers, we're still stuck in the, oh, you're Gen Z, you're Gen Z. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Now, me being from Gen Z is um that's what I'm saying is kind of like rough for me because Gen Z, we don't have the best reputation. Like I said, we're known for being sort of like smarty pants. And again, everybody knows like a smarty pants, what's your first knee jerk reaction? Okay, it may say that in a textbook, but when you get to the stove, you don't have time to be doing all the calculations and to the third powers. Okay. When you're having a conversation with someone, you're not gonna most likely be taking the time to do long division, carry the one, all that stuff. Like if someone asks you what's 1 plus 1, you gotta tell them 2 or I don't know. There's not gonna be like, wait, let me get the calculator. No. In real life, it's gonna be like, what's 1 plus 1? Do you know? No. Do you know? No. Do you know? Yes. Okay. Maybe if you pull out your calculator in time, yeah, but that's a different type of story. So I feel like a lot of people are like find it really odd that my millennial boyfriend has a Gen Z girlfriend. And that's why I was talking about my family in particular. The reason why I feel like it makes sense is because I grew up in a very old fashioned household. And so even though millennials a lot of times like their experiences trump Gen Z, a lot of millennials are so, I don't want to say lost in the sauce, but where it's a tumultuous time in America, right? So a lot of millennials, and part of the things that I admire about them, a lot of millennials left the crutch of like leaning on their family and like try to become independent, left the crutch of dependence and tried to become independent. So they operate on their experiences, and like I said in the other live, they don't 100% distrust, but they also don't 100% trust the knowledge of others, right? The millennials are very much about their experiences, okay? Us Gen Zers, and this is where I feel like being from Gen Z is an advantage. We are about the Carfax. We don't care if, and this is like a two double edged sword. We don't care if we go up to the counter 13 times and you tell us no. If the Carfax says that we should get a yes, we're gonna be like, okay, what's wrong with the situation as to where I'm getting a no, and I'm gonna keep trying until I figure out what I'm missing, right? We're not gonna be like, oh, yeah, I went there and they told me no, so I'm not gonna go back. No, we're gonna pull up the Carfax, okay? That's us. And so millennials being all about their experience, I feel as though they forget sometimes that the Carfax is helpful, okay? Not just helpful for them to know for themselves, but also for people to trust their experiences, right? So I'm mainly talking about, because I'm not going to tell a millennial what they should know because, like I said, I admire them. I trust their experiences. I don't have the same experiences. So I trust their experiences because I trust myself, so to speak, because I grew up in the same house as a millennial. So I'm not saying that like I'm gonna take verbatim everything that my millennial sibling says, but it's like I trust the fact that I grew up observing her. So when she said something, I trust that I can use my knowledge of decades of knowing her to discern within a reasonable amount of error the truth. Okay. So yeah, but they don't rely on the Carfax as much to prove their experiences. And as a Gen Zer, I feel like that's my specialty. So I feel like my millennial boyfriend, as much as he's like, oh, you're from Gen Z, like you haven't had enough experiences, da 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 da. And I'm like, well, as a millennial, you don't have the Carfax. Us Gen Zers, we have the Carfax. Any Carfax that you're gonna need to talk about your experience, best believe is information that a Gen Zer is familiar with, right? Um, so it's like in areas where my boyfriend doesn't have as much experience, I have the Carfax. And in areas where he does have experience, I have the Carfax. And so their lack of awareness of the Carfax is is what I'm talking about. But honestly, speaking of Carfax, I realize I need to stop talking in what ifs and absolutes because I realize that's a Gen Z thing and millennials trust experience. So hold on.